Hello and welcome to episode 40 of Fergo and the Freak. I'm that bloke from Rugby League Project, Andrew Ferguson. You can find me on Twitter at AndrewRLP. Joining me as always is League Freak, who you can find on Twitter at League Freak. How are you today, mate?
I'm very good. I've now had 1 1/3 coffee, so I'm now with the land of the living, and we're ready to talk about a bunch of rugby league stuff that we've been talking about for the last hour.
Yeah, we got halfway through talking about it. I was just trying to think of something to talk about for this episode, and then realised, shit, we've just wasted a podcast worth of conversation. And now we're going to do it all over again just for you guys.
Yeah, it'll be great.
We're going to call this the episode where we looked at the clickbait headlines in Daily Telegraph and discuss what they're talking about there.
Yeah, and how positive their coverage of the game actually is.
Yeah.
Wonderful stuff.
Wonderful. So the main story they've got today is NRL concussion shock. I'm not sure if I like those two words together.
Mm-hmm.
Brain disease found in former players. And it's about two deceased players who have played, as the article states, at least 150 first-grade games each.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, they found the, was it CTE?
Yep.
Was found in both players' brains.
And,
yeah.
So these two players, they haven't named them. These two players have played at least 150 first-grade games. And the thing about CTE, at the moment, they can't diagnose it until a player has passed away and they physically get a chance to look at their brain and study their brain. So these two players have passed away. Now, they don't narrow it down to how old they were or anything, and no doubt people speculate about who these poor people were. I'm sure that eventually we will find out down the track, but it is kind of scary, and I think it's to be expected because there is head trauma in rugby league, as there is in a lot of different things that people choose to do with their leisure time. And the thing I think that needs to be remembered, because a lot of journalists are going to line this up with what we saw in the NFL. And the thing that needs to be remembered is that rugby league, going back from as far as I can even remember, has always taken head trauma seriously. And they've always put measures in place that have been the latest news and information about how to treat head trauma. Whereas the NFL didn't. The NFL really pushed back against a lot of things that were being told to them by the doctors and things like that. And that's the thing that you're probably not going to hear about from journalists, because the journalists are looking for the clickbait headlines and everything sensational, and no one will be playing rugby league in 5 years' time and that sort of stuff. But the NRL has always taken the very latest advice on head trauma, going back decades now, and that's the big difference. And we're seeing that with the HIA is the latest thing, and there's really not another sport in the whole world that takes it as seriously as rugby league does that I can think of, and I watch a lot of different sports.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think a lot of people in the media are going to sit there and say silly things like, oh, this is going to lead to changes, going to ruin the fabric of the sport, it's going to make it softer, and I think that was kind of the fear that the NFL had.
Yeah.
A sport where players are wearing 16 tons of padding and helmets.
And look, it has changed their sport to a certain degree, not hugely, and it's definitely changed the way that parents have looked at their young kids playing football as a fun event, or NFL gridiron over there as a fun event. But it's a completely different sport with completely different dynamics to rugby league. And this might actually be an interesting thing to talk to NRL Physio about. And we did talk to him a little bit about it in the first episode that we interviewed him in. And you can go back through the archives and look up, and if you just look up NRL Physio and Fergo and the Freak, you'll find it. But yeah, it's a very different beast. You know, one of the things apparently that they find people get head trauma from and concussions from is water skiing. from the constant like smashing down into the water. That's one of the things that you don't think about, that, people get head trauma or concussive traumas from.
It's one of these really tricky things too. You're going to see, nearly every sport. I mean, even things like motor racing, where they don't actually have a lot of drivers won't have that many high-speed collisions in their lifetime, but they'll have that one or two that will just spark this immediate concern because the G-force from start to stop in such a sudden time can cause a lot of drama as well.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, because it's a part of sport, and sport is something that everyone loves, and, I mean, these people do it because they love it, and they know the risk going into it. It's one of those, you get that sort of tricky area of how do you try and keep the athlete as safe as possible, but without ruining the game and what people love about it too much. And I think that's part and parcel why the NRL has cut down on certain things such as punching and shoulder charges.
Yeah.
Which people don't like, but at the same time, they're solid changes because they get rid of some of the worst cases of head trauma you can get.
Yeah.
Well, at the same time, you're not really impacting on how the game's played.
Yeah,
that's
and
what it is.
Yeah, and the thing about those two things as well is that when they're, and I know I'm using the wrong word here, but when they're part of the game, it's, if there's a fight or punching allowed, that's something that is direct head trauma, and the NRL could have done something about, and they penalise you heavily for that now. And we have. I mean, how many times have we seen punches thrown, proper punches thrown since that come in? I mean, I can't think of one. So that worked. As much as we don't like to see punching in the NRL anymore, that the rule change worked. And with the shoulder charges, we were looking at video the other week about, players getting knocked out cold, and I mean, they were all from shoulder charging.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. I mean, a lot of people were immediately opposed to the shoulder charging because it basically came about after that hit by Inglis on Dean Young, which was, God, that was just brutal. And everyone complained at the time. And then you had the story of that football player up in Queensland who died from one. Yeah. And immediately everyone goes, okay, we start to see that these can go bad, and when they do, people can be killed. Yeah. And we've seen sadly since then, that the complaints about shoulder charges has sort of died down a fair bit. You'll still get it come through occasionally, but, people saying, just penalise the bad ones. And say, yeah, but if the bad ones lead to someone dying, how long do you suspend a player for?
That's a good
point.
When
they mistime something, like if it's Dylan Napper, who sometimes has a bit of a wild, reckless technique, but he's not doing it with intent to kill anyone, but it fucks up someone's face, or worse. You can't suspend someone based on how long the opposition player is injured for or how long they're out for, because if that was the case, then players like Jordan McLean wouldn't be playing ever again. So it's crazy to think that you can suspend one type of penalty. You can't be reactive on this. It has to be proactive. You've got to outlaw it because it's safer for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And look, I am big on bringing shoulder charges back. I really am. I'm big on bringing punches back, but shoulder charges more than anything, because I think it is, unlike punching, the shoulder charge in defence is a part of the gladiatorial aspect of the game. And I think that the brutality aspect of the NRL, which is something I enjoy, and I think a lot of people enjoy, was really hurt for a couple of years by not having the shoulder charge there. I think if you watch this season, I think it's now that players have keyed in on their technique a little bit more, I think that you don't miss it as much, because now we're still seeing some of those massive hits, and it's all like, and you wait for it. You see the replay and you're like, oh my goodness, what did he do here? And it's just beautiful technique. But I do miss the shoulder charge, and I would like to see it brought back. But if it's the wrong thing, it doesn't matter what I want. And if it's going to lead to players properly getting injured, then it's not a good thing. And yeah, it's the NRL has done a really good job at changing the game over the years to look after players' welfare. And I think we're even seeing that now with talk about reducing the interchange, and there's real pushback against that in terms of, well, we're going to see players getting injuries more, even if it's just fatigue injuries where you're pulling muscles and things like that. People are pushing back against it because rugby league has always had an eye on the welfare of players. And I mean, look, it started because of the welfare of players. Rugby league literally started because they wanted to protect the welfare of players to a certain degree. So I think rugby league has a lot less of an issue than other sports do. And I would say that rugby league is probably in the same sort of category as sports like, and this is going to sound weird, but, gymnastics and things like that, where you can remove the head trauma if you want, but you would have to be saying to gymnasts, you can't do anything that makes you leave the ground at all. You can't do those routines. And that really would change the whole fabric of these sports. And then what are you doing at that point? That you would literally get to a point where players would say, look, I will sign any of the waivers you want to be able to do the sport as is, and I will take the chance that I'm that one in, put any number on it. It might be 1 in 1,000. It might be 1 in 10,000. It might be 1 in 1,000,000. Just depends what you're doing. That I'm willing to do this because that's what drives me. I don't do this because it's easy. I don't do it because it's simple. I don't do it because everyone can do it. I do it because I want to push myself and see what my limits are. And I think that might be the end result with all of this sort of stuff, in that rugby league will find, and I think it has, I really do think it has, rugby league will find that balance between, we've looked after players as much as we possibly can through our rules, and after that you're accepting the same sort of possibility of personal injury that you do when you get a ticket to the drag races and it says on the back of it, motor racing is a dangerous sport, and you are watching this motor race from the stands knowing that something catastrophic might happen. And I think that that's where we're going with this. And I applaud the NRL for everything it's done to try and minimise injuries and head trauma to players. And I think we can be really proud as a sport going ahead, knowing that there's no other sport in the world that is looking at this as seriously and taking the steps that rugby league has and always has. Going back to when was their head been first brought in? The 80s, the late 80s, early 90s?
Yeah, it came out as a reaction to AIDS and HIV starting to become more commonly known, and people realised that it wasn't just something that was like a sexually transmitted disease. They realised that it was actually a blood transferable disease.
Yeah.
And so that was immediately when that came out, because they found some players in the past who just wipe their face on their shirt and keep playing on. They'd be playing on a bloody jumper. Nowadays, that happens. They take the jumper off and get them a new one and patch them up and get them back out there that way. Always been pretty smart like that. Outlawing spear tackles and punching and stuff like that in the 70s as a result of, delayed result, but as a result of what happened with John Farragher in a scrum. Mm-hmm. That also saw scrums change as well. Mm-hmm. People will complain about scrums being, a bit shit house, because they really are. But when someone goes down in a scrum and breaks their neck and can't walk again, you can't just sort of let that slide. Something's going to change in the game so that doesn't happen again. That's one time too many that's happened. So they were right to change that. It also helped clean up the game and get rid of a lot of penalties and speed it up a fair bit more as well. So it actually had more of a positive effect than a bad one.
Yeah. And the other thing is too, with all of those changes over time, rugby league has really been ahead of the curve. And like, it took a long time, and as an NBA fan, it took a long time before the NBA a player would get a cut or something on the court, and they would get them straight off, make sure they didn't have any blood and stuff like that, and they tape them up and things on the side of the court. But rugby league has been doing that for 20 years or something. So I think that we really need to keep a perspective on this and know that the NRL, as much as any sport in the world, is always taking advice from doctors. Doctors have always been part of the process of making sure players get the best care and best treatment and all that sort of thing. So there's going to be a lot of headlines that will happen over the next few days, and a lot of it is going to be sensationalized. It's smart to, read the articles, but know that the NRL is at the cutting edge of this, and the game's fabric is not going to change, because at the end of the day, you are going to get players that will say, if I've got to sign a waiver, I'll sign that waiver. And so just keep an eye on the sensationalism that's going to come out of this, and we'll see what happens with it.
Yeah, speaking of other tackles around the head and the neck area that's been attended to, apparently there's now going to be up to 4 or 5 weeks suspensions handed out to players who commit crusher tackles.
Mm-hmm.
And they can also be sent off now if they commit a crusher tackle that's serious, like some of the ones we saw 2 weeks ago. You've mentioned this before, where it's pretty clear that what we're seeing now is a lot of players, when they take the ball up to the line, they're getting to the line and turning their back and going in backwards. And I dare say it's because they're trying to open up the opportunity to get a ball away while attracting 2 or 3 defenders. It could also be, an attempt to try and, I dare say, avoid being turned around and worked over on the ground in the wrestle, so that they can get a quicker play the ball away. But it also puts them in this really, really dangerous position where their neck is then bending back towards their chest just because they're running in backwards. And it's caused a lot of these crusher tackles to take place, and a lot of them are by accident. Some of the ones that we've seen recently, though, were horrible. Very, very bad, because the player doing the tackle, the tackle player is largely on his back. He's not moving anymore, and yet they put all of their weight down on this player. I don't think they're intentionally trying to do a crusher tackle. They're just trying to complete the tackle with a bit of force, but that head's just in the wrong spot, and it's ugly to watch. How someone hasn't done a serious injury yet is an absolute bloody miracle so far. So I think it's good that they've decided to come out hard on this. But I think too much emphasis has been put on the defenders for doing the wrong thing, when I think some of the attacking players need to be looked at as well, and find out whether there's actually any chance that players are going in backwards into these tackles, knowing that they may get a penalty for a crusher tackle. And if that's the case, that's bloody crazy.
Yeah, so I don't think it's that. I don't think that it's a tactic that is a conscious one. I just think it's where the dynamic of the tackle is at the moment, in terms of you've got I think we're seeing a lot more offloading in the last probably couple of seasons. And we've also, and I don't think it has anything to do with the new stripping rule, but I think where players are wanting to protect the ball more. So remember I think it was about 2 years ago, the rule was changed with players dropping the ball, and it wasn't really changed. It was just kind of a reminder to the referees that if you have a loose carry, you will lose the ball. You're not going to get bailed out by the referee saying, oh, yeah, you had a loose carry, but this player put their hand on the ball and that's it. So I think we're seeing players wrap up the ball more. And if you do, and I'm physically doing the thing now, if you've got the ball in your hand and you think you've got a couple of people that are trying to take the ball off you, immediately you wrap yourself up around that ball more, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what we're seeing in tackles. If they're not looking to offload, they're wrapping themselves up. And then, so they're hitting the line, wrapping the ball up, and now you've changed the physical object that you are. Now, the opposition player, they want to get you when you get to the ground, they want you to be on your back, because when you're on your back, you're going to be a slower play the ball. So they try and turn you around a little bit. Once you're turned around as a player and your back is to the defensive line, you've still got a lot of drive in your legs. And you probably have more drive in your legs pushing back against a couple of defenders behind you. So you're pushing back in the tackle and you're all wrapped up over the ball. And when you wrap that ball up, you don't wrap it up with your head up and straight. You wrap it up with your head down over the top of the ball. So you've got that dynamic. Now, at that point, the defenders normally want to get the player to the ground. Even if you say they don't want to do it themselves, gravity is eventually going to make this tackle go to the ground. So how does it go to the ground? The attacking player's backside is going to be the first thing that hits the ground. And because he's wrapped up over the top of the ball, his head is going to be, and this is going to sound funny, his head is going to be over the top of where his backside hits the ground because he's wrapped up over the ball. And straight away, you are in a perfect position to be in a crusher tackle. And all it takes is for gravity to drop one of those defenders on the top of your head, and you are in a crusher tackle at that stage. Now, I don't think it's a tactic. I just think it's the dynamic of where we're at with tackles. I don't know how you combat it.
Could it become a tactic, though, now that it's going to be something that's heavily punished? Could you see some teams trying to find a way? And I'm not saying they're going to get themselves in a crusher tackle, but milk a crusher tackle. Oh, my neck.
Look, I think that's...
That's what I think is going to happen. We've seen this before, like in less serious things such as players claim that they were taken out of defensive line when they run in and their finger touches the hair of another player and they fall over Greg Bird style, and they get a penalty that way. The refs have really cracked down hard on that. They're not taking that shit anymore. But when it comes to a neck or a head thing, they're not going to be as aggressive about it because, you know, this is someone's head and neck. That's practically sacrosanct on the NRL field. You don't piss fart around with that.
Yeah, and sometimes you hear a player yelling out about their neck, and you'll see. Rugby league is such a special sport in this sense, in that you'll see the players will stop. Like, they will literally just fucking drop everything. They will stop. They will call the referee over, and they will say, "We've got a problem here." You know, even if it's because it's very scary. You can see players get scared when they feel those feelings through their neck, whether it's a nerve issue, whether it is a strained neck ligaments or something. It scares them, and rightfully so. But yeah, you have to wonder if it will be something along the lines of, I feel something in my neck. I know I've been in this position, so I stay down. I guess that is a concern, which I didn't even think of that. But yeah, it might be something that happens. But I also think that we're going to see defenders, and I think defenders are pretty good with it. I think what they're really trying to get rid of, right, is you get a player in that position where you could do a crusher on them, and as a defender, you basically drop your legs out from underneath you and drop on top of them. I think that's what they're trying to get rid of.
Okay, fair enough. Moving on to some lighter news.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, Michael Maguire has re-signed Corey Thompson to the Tigers for a few more years, and also told him that you are now our long-term fullback option. It's your job to lose, which has seen Moses Mbai moved into the centres. And given Mbai's still got, I think, 1 or 2 years left to go, he's on quite large money.
Ridiculous money.
I wonder about this idea whether... I don't know. See, I think Thompson is a better fullback for me than Mbai, but I don't know that Mbai is that good a centre.
See, when he played centre the other week, and I was like, wow, they don't know what to do with him. But I thought he had a really, really good game. Like, indeed, shockingly good.
Defensively, though, he's going to be found wanting after a few weeks there. I
See,
think that's going to be the problem with him. I think he's going to be a bit. He's going to play a bit more like a winger. I think we're going to find he's going to rush up and in a fair bit at centre, which is going to leave his outside man outnumbered more often than not, which we used to see Kevin Nguama do all the time for the Tigers.
I think he could. There's some players I would say to you, they're not going to be able to sort their defence out. He's actually one I think could learn what you've got to do as a centre. I was so shocked by how well he played in attack, especially, and it was weird. It was like, he's finally found his position, and it took a lot of years. He's been playing everywhere in the team, and he's going back to the Bulldogs.
Yeah, well, see, I think that the Tigers are looking at him as Benji's replacement.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought that this year was going to be, a year where he'd stay at fullback the whole time, so he can work on, forming those partnerships with the edge players and linking up with Brooks a bit more.
Yeah,
because he can do that easily at fullback because he can chime in wherever he wants. So I thought that was kind of the idea there. But to move him to centre just means they're parking him on one side.
And it's a lot of if you play him at centre, and I say you because it's your team, but if you play him at centre, I mean, how many centres would be earning more than him? I would guess Mitchell, and man, I would guess that is it. And I would say Mitchell going forward in his next contract or an upgraded contract, not even now. I mean, Mbai might be the highest paid centre in the game right now.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. So we'll see how it goes. I think at this stage, Maguire is probably working on his roster for next year because he sort of walked into this team when this squad was already assembled for 2019. So I think he's currently working out who he's going to keep for 2020 and 2021.
What do you think about Thompson and I understand why Maguire has said, look, you're our fullback. They've re-signed Thompson. I've said to you, I think that Thompson is, I put him in the same category as Gutherson. He's the sort of fullback that you name in first grade when you either haven't got a fullback or your first grade fullback is injured. I don't really rate him that highly. So what are your thoughts about him being given that role as their fullback for the next couple of years? I mean, are you happy with that? I know you rate him way higher not way high, but you rate him higher than I do.
Yeah, he's a solid, consistent winger. He's got one thing going against him, that is he's not very tall.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to be, he's probably going to get targeted by a lot of high balls close to the line, knowing that a lot of players are going to outjump him. But at the same time, his kick returns are pretty damn good for a guy his size. And he's a pretty good cover defender as well. Mm-hmm. So I don't think he's going to be a bad idea there. He's going to be consistently good, but he's not going to be exceptionally out of this world. He's not going to be like that. So I think Maguire looks at him and thinks that just ties down one spot on the field because he's got a few areas he needs to sort out away from that, namely the halves and hooker. So
what do you feel about as a Tigers fan in that all of a sudden it's a poll on the Tigers fan podcast? This is great.
Bring it on.
Yeah. What's it like? What do you feel about the way that the Tigers have been now linked to so many players and have not signed any of them and have basically, I mean, they're having to make do with what they've got. They haven't had any real additions. We've seen players go to other clubs that would have been handy additions to the Tigers. Is it concerning for you? Is it something, do you feel as though it's been player managers tossing the Tigers out there more than the Tigers actually going after these players? Like, how do you feel as a fan?
Consistent. But this has been going on for a long time with the club. They've been linked with a lot of big-name players in the past, and rarely have they ever landed any of them.
But what about Terry Hill? I'm sorry. I had to. I'm sorry.
I didn't mind Terry in his first year at the club. But yeah, sort of fell away a bit after that.
How bad did his defence get, hey? What the hell happened there?
he got turned into a lock, which didn't kind of help.
Yeah, that's true.
Which that was not brilliant.
It's all that lobster gate.
Like even when the club bought Gareth Ellis, players knew that Ellis was world class straight away. But at the same time, the fans were saying they're trying to find a reason to play it down. Surely we didn't just buy a great player. And they watched him in the World Cup going, yeah, he wasn't that good. And then he came and played for us and they're like, holy crap, this bloke's phenomenal. And how did we do that? So the club said, we'll double down. We'll get another international forward. And they bought Adam Blair.
I just looked off into the distance.
I just looked at the ground in sorrow.
Oh, yeah. Man.
So,
and they didn't just get Adam Blair either. They said, own the farm, Adam. Here you go. Have all the money.
And in return, we will get rid of our consistently solid prop in Bryce Gibbs. And also lose our rookie star in Andrew Fafita at the same time. Because Blair's worth more than those two.
I looked off into the distance again, hey?
I looked down to the floor again. I'd challenge anyone to tell me a team that's had worse recruitment and retention than the Tigers in the last 20 years.
Oh, man, that's a whole podcast there. Yeah, let's have a quick think. I would say, okay, over the course of 20 years, it can't be beat. It can't be beat. You've got short little periods of time, say, for instance, the Bulldogs over the last 18 months, I would say, would probably get in there, but not consistently over the 20 years. Definitely not.
I mean, they've had three. You can count them, 3 good seasons in 20 years where they made the finals. It's just not good enough.
I mean, put it this way, if you think of other teams that have had some struggles, and I think immediately of someone like the Titans, who've had struggles for different reasons, but I would suggest that, and I would guess as a Tigers fan, you would take their recruitment over the Tigers a million times out of a million.
Maybe, yeah. I'd be inclined to take theirs more often than over the Tigers one. Parramatta's another one that's sort of struggled for a while too, but even then they've been able to recruit some good players.
Yeah.
And even outdone Tigers on a few, So, yeah, they've been the worst for quite a while in that area. I'm hoping that it changes soon.
Yeah. I do too, because like when the Tigers are going good, there's something special about it. It's weird when they're winning games. It's like there's this reach back into the soul of rugby league's history, and it comes forward a little bit. So it's good when they're going well. I guess it's similar with the Parramatta Eels when they're going properly well. It's good for the game, and there's not huge amounts of clubs that are like that. Like I think when Penrith is going well, it's just Penrith going well. I don't think it's great for the game in any great sense, but there's certain clubs where I think it's good for the game when they're going well, and they're one of them.
I think that for the Tigers, it's because people pity the club, and I don't say that in a bad way. I mean the fact that these were two very proud foundation clubs. And they were forced together because of Super League. And that was after they'd been promised before the Super League took place that, no clubs would be forced into mergers or made to quit.
Yeah.
And then these two foundation clubs had to.
Yeah.
In order to avoid being taken over by rival clubs, Parramatta and the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
And being completely forgotten. So I think people sort of go, poor Tigers, that must have sucked. And it still does.
Yeah.
Anyway, another story was... we'll move on to the comedy section of the show now.
Okay, excellent.
Because we're looking at a Paul Crawley article.
Oh, wow, this will be good.
Here's the headline. Why Rugby League needs a loyalty reward scheme. Okay.
That was what I was thinking as well. Okay.
What infuriates me, says Paul Crawley, and I'm sure plenty of other fans today, let's say plenty is a number less than 100, is that not only are we discussing the futures of the Trebojevic brothers right now, because there's rumours that they are being courted by the Bulldogs, despite them not coming off contract to the end of 2020, but there is also a possibility that another club is going to come along and pinch them long before that. Why is this allowed to happen in the NRL when a club such as Manly has put years and years of hard work, money and expertise in developing them to become the special talents they now are? Why do we always have to have this conversation?
Yeah, and especially in rugby league, because, I mean, going back to day one, it's kind of about recruiting players from outside.
Yeah.
And promoting, very early on, it was about promoting player rights and player movement and things like that. And I know it changed eventually, and now it's back again. But this is the sport. Like, what does Paul Crawley really want? What does he want? What would he like? Like, what's his not so much what his solution is? Okay,
he doesn't have a solution.
Okay, all right. Shockingly, but what does he want?
He has a hope that Peter Beattie and Todd Greenberg have been reading all the reports this week, and they do something to finally address a massive issue that has been ignored for far too long. There has to be a greater salary cap incentive to clubs who develop juniors, and this does not just relate to Manly, but all clubs. Because he did state at the start of the article, he's not a Manly fan.
Yeah, well,
so he's not trying to push the Manly barrow here.
This isn't about Manly.
Apparently, that adds credibility to the article.
Yeah, well, straight away I was like, well, it's got to be true then if it's not about Manly.
Yeah.
Just say you brought in. All right, man, maybe we're devoting too much to this fucking bullshit. But just say you brought in a heavy loyalty, or let's call it a player development incentive, okay? And let's not just say when they come into your club system, because I think that's BS, all right? Let's say it's a local junior system where if you develop a local junior and they come from being in the local competition right into your first grade team, you get some sort of big incentive for that. The Panthers, the Broncos, the Cowboys, and the Raiders would be just almost unbeatable. If Warriors. You say, and the Warriors, you're right, the Warriors, I forgot them. They would almost be unbeatable, those clubs, and everyone else would be fighting over the scraps every other year. If you say that a player that comes through your systems like that gets a 50% salary cap discount, it's a close shot for those clubs, and everyone else just has to do their best. You'd probably get a team like the St. George Illawarra Dragons would be on the fringe of that. Most Sydney clubs would be out. The Roosters would be just cellar dwellers every year. The
big concern with this is, first of all, if these players want to leave the club, they should be free to do so whenever the hell they like. That's 100%. Why we have the system where players can go to another club, even though they're currently contracted to one, so on and so forth. Then you need to have freedom of trade for players. And that's, we discussed that in the Dennis Tardy episode a long time ago. Because the system before that denied players any respect from the club whatsoever. The club just treated them like they were cattle.
Yeah,
and what they wanted with them.
It was very much a system of its time that had definitely outlived itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was looking back on it with what we have now. If you put it into today, I mean, it was a disgusting system, really, and it was one that took advantage of players, and they knew it. That's why they fought against it.
Now, the other thing he's saying on here, just to sort of contradict himself a little bit.
He wouldn't do that. Are you sure it's Paul Crawley?
Well, I did have to double check. Yeah, it's definitely him. He's also talking about the fact that Daly Cherry Evans is currently being paid $1 million a season.
Yes.
Is Manly Warringah based in the Brisbane region or the Queensland region where Daly Cherry Evans grew up?
Let me just Google map that.
Who
No, you know
was
what? It seems like there's some distance between the two. That's
who
interesting.
who paid for Daly Cherry Evans' development as a junior? And we're talking from like 8, 10, 12, 13 years age onwards.
Yeah, yes. Well,
I don't think it was Manly. Yet that seems to be okay.
Mm,
But he's not a Manly fan, so that's different argument. Look,
very interesting.
I wonder, given that you're the more of an aficionado of the NBA than I am,
Yes.
and that may be the last time we use that word in this entire podcasting history.
Okay.
Has there been concerns like this in the NBA?
Well, no, because the NBA teams don't really develop players in any capacity. They do have, and I'm going to put it into terms that rugby league supporters would be more familiar with. There are teams that do have reserve grade teams that you can sign free agents of a lower level and develop them in your reserve grade team and then bring them up. And you do get slight incentives out of that, but they're extremely slight. Like you're allowed to bring them up into your top grade team only for a certain number of, I'm trying to think, I think it's a certain number of games you're allowed to have them in, and then you either have to send them back down or you have to sign them to what amounts to an NBA contract. And after that, I mean, these players can leave or become, I think they become unrestricted free agents. And so there are tiny little incentives for players like that. But because of the nature of the NBA, these players are very much fringe players for the most part. And outside of that, NBA teams don't really spend any money at all developing players in the local areas with an eye on getting them to play for their teams. It's sort of a greater basketball sort of development that they spend on. So there's not really anything like that in the NBA.
There's no complaining about player loyalty?
There is only complaints about player loyalty in the sense that if you sign a player, if you draft a player and he's at your club for a certain amount of time and then he's like, I want out, I want to get out of here, you'll get a little bit of complaint, but it's not really a loyalty complaint. It's more a sense of, well, this bastard wants to leave. So there's not really any loyalty talk in the NBA, especially these days, you know. I guess someone like a LeBron James who grew up in Cleveland and just so happened to end up being drafted by Cleveland and then turn around and did his special where he said, I'm taking my talents to South Beach. There was a little bit of loyalty talk there, but it's not really there's not really talk about loyalty in the NBA. It's kind of very much everyone knows it's a business and everyone can leave when they want to. And so there's not really much loyalty talk in the NBA, hey?
Everyone knows it's a business and everyone's free to go where they want to. That's exactly what it is.
Exactly. It's almost as though if you want to hold on to a player that you develop in the NRL, there's almost like a club can exchange some sort of value-based commodity to the player to show them that they want to keep them.
Kind of like barter?
Yes, some sort of barter system. I'm trying to think of a better word for it, though.
You give the player something,
yes,
and in return they'll give you something like their performance.
Their services in return, yeah. And you almost do it for a set amount of time, and you sign something. I don't even know what you'd call that something.
And I take it all you've got to do is make sure you keep that said player happy.
Yes.
Which probably just means giving them... Yeah, you just need to give them some more of the commodity if that helps to keep them happy.
Yeah.
Mate, this is crazy. I don't think this will ever catch on.
Yeah, it sounds like bullshit. It sounds like pie in the sky stuff to me, eh?
Didn't the barter system die out years ago with the cavemen?
I'm pretty sure it did. Yeah. Do you remember when, man, I'm going back now, North Sydney Bears, they signed a contract with a sponsor and it was a barter company. And that was just before. This was just before it rained in Gosford. And I remember when they signed that contract, and look, it's nothing against the company. I'm sure they're a great company, but I remember thinking, I wonder how much money they got out of that, or if it's a barter, a barter system that they've put in place.
I think the better barter system was the one that the RFL had with Stobar, wasn't it?
Oh, let's do a whole podcast about that one day. I went crazy about that.
That was the single dumbest thing I've ever heard of in rugby league sponsorship world.
Easily. For those that don't know, the Rugby Football League, and this wasn't even that long ago, this was like within the last
decade,
years.
wasn't it?
Yeah. They signed a contract with a basically a transport company, a shipping company that had trucks. And it was for the major sponsorship. So it would be like their Telstra Premiership, right? But they signed it with this trucking company, and the deal involved no money. But this trucking company promised to put like big things on the side of their trucks with Super League players on there, and it was for no money at all. And that was the deal. And yeah, the Rugby Football League. Wow.
Genius.
Man. Genius. And then they turned around and were like, yeah, we don't really have any money.
Where did that go? Oh, that's right, because with barter, you're supposed to get something back. Right. We stuffed that bit.
Brilliant.
Another article here about Mitchell Pearce. Origin withdrawal was selfless.
Of course it was.
The media is still asking him whether he would be open to playing in Game 3 given Cleary's injury. And he's still given answers of, yeah, it'd be nice to get called up, but I'm kind of happy doing it. He's not committed. He's more committed to this than Mitchell Moses is. Because Mitchell Moses is focused primarily on Parramatta.
Yeah, you go up to Mitchell Moses and say, Mitchell, do you want 35 grand and to be the whole centre of an Origin campaign?
Parramatta.
And he says, no. Parramatta is my single focus, not Lebanon, not the Blues.
Parramatta.
Yeah.
That's all he says now when you're asking questions. He says Parramatta. He's so focused on it. That's all he says. What's your surname? Parramatta.
Yeah. And it used to, and it's a big change because it used to be, look at me.
And then he follows up with, yeah, I am.
Oh, jeez. I think it's, for Mitchell Pearce's sake, I think he should say, stop asking me about State of Origin. I think that every Blues supporter would understand if he said, I'm not answering a single State of Origin question again. I think it's detrimental to him, to his club, to the Blues. I think that it's a little bit, it's a bit gross at the moment. And
I was going to say, the best comment I heard about this whole saga with Mitchell Pearce was actually on the Starting Block episode last night. Mm-hmm. And they said that Greeno said on there that Mitchell Pearce should have been handed the Man of the Match award. His decision not to play helped New South Wales win that game.
Man, and they cracked up too. And I cracked up when I was listening to it. I was in their chat last night. It was good fun.
Yes, we'll get to that soon. An NFL coach has said Valentine Holmes is ahead of where I thought he'd be. Do you think he's going to get an NFL contract next year and be playing in the big league?
I think he will. The natural progression is going to be to very much the same thing we saw with Jared Hayne, in that he will play some preseason games. They'll get a look at him. They will get a look at what he can do. And if he needs to make zero mistakes, he's at the Jets, so he hasn't got a lot of the pressures that kicked in with Jared Hayne, in that Jared Hayne went to a team that at the time was really, really good and had the capacity to give a player like him a chance. But then when things fell apart, immediately projects like Jared Hayne, they disappear. They go out the window because it's a lot of people trying to keep their own jobs. He hasn't got those pressures at the Jets, although he is playing at a New York club. So that's a different pressure. But I think they'll give him some preseason, run in the preseason and see how he goes. And from there, he really has to perform in preseason like Jared Hayne did. I mean, Jared Hayne did really, really well. So we'll see what happens from there. to say he's ahead of the progress that they expected, like, what progress do you expect? Like, what, that he's not playing gridiron at all and that he's playing in the NRL? Like, of course he's ahead of where you'd expect him to be. And he's a great athlete, as all rugby league athletes are, and I think the vast majority of rugby league players, if they gave it a go, they would do really well in it because of the skill set you have in rugby league, the disciplines and stuff like that. I kind of expect him to be looked at maybe as a special teams player, maybe a kick returner, maybe even a specialised kick returner. And we'll see how he goes. It just comes down to that. I think he'll be good at it. I really do. I don't know how far he will go in terms of he has to be outstanding. He has to be outstanding in an NFL level to have the career that you want him to have in the NFL. And the thing is, with kick returners and punt returners, their careers can be very short even if they are in the top 10%. So, I mean, he might only do this for 2 or 3 years and he would be in the same level as the top, say, 20% of kick and punt returners in the NFL. So, you've got to grade it along those lines. But I think that he will he get, okay, here's a question. Will he get a start in a full NFL game? Yes, I think he can do that. I definitely think he can do that. Okay.
Next question is, if he doesn't, how long does he stay there, or does he come straight back to the NRL?
If he plays a preseason and they decide to go in a different direction with either the kick returner or a punt returner, I don't know that you'd play him as a running back. But if they go in a different direction with whatever player they see him as, I think he will look at if there are opportunities or a couple of other teams to go straight into that role. And if that's not there, he comes straight back to the NRL. I don't think he would be someone like a Hayne who would look at rugby union or something like that as a stopgap measure, unless he has to, in terms of the transitional period he might need to have between, I'm trying to think of how to word this. He might need to have a transitional period between when he stops doing what he has to do to be an NFL player and coming back to the NRL. He might need some transitional time between then and now. And in that regard, he might find that he can pick up a contract playing, it might even be sevens for a few months or 6 months or 5 months, whatever that transitional time is between then and all of the things you have to do to be eligible to be an NRL player. And I hope I'm dancing like Fred Astaire and that people understand what I'm trying to say. But I think that he'll basically come straight back to the NRL and he will get a big contract and, he'll be in demand from a lot of teams just because of who he is as a rugby league player.
Absolutely. That's pretty thorough.
Okay, thank you. That's because, Andrew, and you'll understand this because you're an expert, I'm an expert. And experts know experts.
That's very true. It's very true.
I recognise you as an expert, you see.
Yeah, I've never ever doubted your expert. I'm being a bit nonchalant there because I'm not sure I deserve to be considered an expert.
100% you're an expert. Stop it.
I'm the most humble man in the world. Just ask me, I'll tell you.
Normally I'd back that up with saying so am I, but we all know that's fucking bullshit.
Just seeing what else I've got on this. If there's anything else of any value. Because that's all we spoke about so far is the valuable stuff. Here we go.
Yep.
This is a good one. Phil Rothfield with his open apology to Freddie Fittler. And he starts it with, "We're sorry." Not, "Oh, I'm sorry. We're sorry."
I'm glad that he spoke up on my behalf, hey?
Yeah. I don't apologise.
Yeah, I
I'm
said what
glad
I
New
said.
South Wales. Yeah, I'm glad New South Wales won. But
Yeah,
I still think it was mad to go into the game without any actual centres and with Daniel Saifiti starting in the front row.
yeah. I,
But
I think it was a gamble.
massive gamble. It paid
Yeah.
off. Will it
Yep.
pay off again?
Yep.
That's a big risk to take. Who knows what's going to happen there?
And that's
But
kind of the beauty of the State of Origin series. We don't know going into these games.
so I'm
But
wondering if New South Wales loses the next game on the back of these gambles,
yeah,
does Buzz then go out and issue an apology to himself for apologising to Freddie for game two?
yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, and the thing is too, I'm sure that Freddie woke up and, if he actually reads the papers, and I think he's like most people, he probably doesn't. But if he did, I think he would have picked up the paper and gone, "Oh, I've been waiting to hear those words, especially off him."
Another headline here. This is great. Analysis. Paul Crawley writes. So we'll move on.
Yeah, what's the next one? Oh, that's the best part of this whole podcast. That's great.
Yeah, I can imagine what Paul Crawley's analysis is like.
Yeah.
I watched the footy. It was like really good.
Football is footballed.
Oh, I've got to write something quick. What did Buzz just write? I'll just repeat what he said with different words.
Copy, paste, replace.
Mr. Echo Chamber himself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you know what? Our echo chamber is so much better, hey? The one
absolutely.
we've got going here.
Absolutely. We've got a stunning echo chamber.
Hell yeah.
So look, I'll click on the opinion one just for a laugh. Where's this going to take us? Oh, another Paul Crawley article. Man. Kent versus Brandy. Forget the conspiracy theories. There was some noticeable tension between Greg Alexander and Paul Kent during an interview on Fox Sports NRL 360 on Monday night. I'm not clicking on the link any further than that.
Yeah, that's enough.
I'm just going to say Brandy wins.
Brandy wins.
Yeah, except in the attire department. Brandy, put a suit on, mate.
Yeah, come on, man. I mean, you're svelte in a suit, Brandy. Like in a suit, you go from being a 10 to like a 100. Yeah, and that's out of 10.
Yeah, absolutely. He makes suits look good.
Yeah,
he makes tracksuits look like tracksuits.
At least I'll say this, Brandy. Listen, okay. When it comes to trackies, I call the grey trackie pants and nothing else. I call that the Mount Druitt suit. Okay. Now, if he's going to go on in trackies, he has to go with the grey trackie pants. Got to wear thongs. And t-shirt or something's just optional. That's dressing it up. So go with that if you're going to go with the trackies. And you know what? I'm sitting here literally right now wearing exactly that. I'm not even joking. Mount Druitt suit.
Yes. I can't add anything to that. That's because I've never been to Mount Druitt. So I've got to take your word for it.
I'll take you there one day. You'll love it.
Okay. I'll hold you up to that too.
Yeah. We'll go and get fish and chips at Hebersham, right? I'll take you for a walk.
Do they have barramundi there?
You know what? I feel like their menu does not have barramundi. I feel they have fish and chips, but it's old style fish and chips. You know how sometimes these new places they don't do old style fish and chips, but at Hebersham they do. So I'll take you there. Then we'll go to Mount Druitt Shopping Centre. We don't call it by the name that they've called it for the last 20 years. It's Mount Druitt Shopping Centre. Go for a walk through there, walk past Best and Less and all that. Then I'll take you for a walk through Dawson Mall down to the train station. That's always good. Get a kebab right there in the corner at the train station. And then I'll take you to Mecca, which is Centrelink. And, I'll take you to Mecca. So we'll go there, walk past where the old bowling centre used to be. So it's always good fun.
Go on the right at Centrelink, ride the queue.
Yeah.
Nice. How long does that take?
Probably. You're probably standing in that queue for a good half hour. I mean, it's a long queue.
Oh, that's pretty express compared to some queues I've seen in some places where I've lived.
Well, sometimes it's out the door, you see.
Yeah.
And while you're there for half an hour, there's always the one person that's like gets the shits and tries to kick the wall or something. That's always good. Where else would I take you, Mount Druitt? I'd probably take you to I'd take you to Old Mount Druitt, and I'd take you to the Jade House. And this is no joke. The Jade House has been doing Chinese food for at least 40 years. So I'd take you to the Jade House.
I was wondering where that was going. You said Chinese food. I was immediately relieved.
I never even thought of that. Oh, jeez. That's hilarious. Yeah.
That was because every Chinese restaurant I know of is called the Golden something.
Yeah, you're right. The Golden. I'm trying to think of what the one in Penrith is called. I can't even remember. All I know is
it's not the shower, is it?
The Golden Shower. Yeah, that'd be hilarious. The Golden Shower.
That's almost my second joke.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That was pretty bad though compared to the first one.
Left a bad taste in my mouth.
Mel Meninga's revealed his plans for the Titans in a review. I have to click the link to find out what they are.
Yeah, that'll be good. Yeah. It's got to be like make them play better, right?
Yeah. Win games.
Yeah. Just wait this time out until they move on Brennan, and then I'll step in. Is that what he said?
I don't know. I'd have to click on the link, and I fear it might be another Crawley article.
Yeah. What about what we were talking about before with that incredible analysis about why Rugby League can never again look at playing NRL games in Perth for the obvious reason. Not that they just got 60,000 people there to a state of origin game between New South Wales and Queensland, and that the ratings were fantastic, or none of that. There's about a million reasons why we can't.
So there was another one, which was the Perth government wasn't overly over the moon because they were expecting a massive influx of tourists from New South Wales and Queensland. But apparently only 15,000 of the seats at Origin were taken up by people travelling from interstate. The reason why Rugby League in West Australia won't go ahead is because nearly all of them went to watch a game of Rugby League there.
Yeah, silly. We can't have that.
Set a ground record at an AFL ground for the game there as well. And his other argument was that the West Coast Eagles spent $140 million since 1986 on junior development, which works out about $4 million a year.
Incredible.
And apparently $13 million a year that an NRL club gets from the grant wouldn't be able to compete with that. Now, I've done a bit of maths in my time, and look, I'm not an egotistical person, okay? I'm not going to be the sort of person who goes out and big notes himself on anywhere.
That must be nice.
I think it's pretty clear that I'm not a bragger.
Yeah.
But I'm fairly certain, I'm fairly confident in my ability at maths, that 13 is bigger than 4.
Are you sure, though?
I'm going to go on a ledge. I'm 100% confident. And I'm fairly certain that 100 is both bigger than 13 and 4.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'm willing to go with you on that. I don't get into numbers. Numbers isn't my thing. But I'm willing to go with you on that.
Yeah. Absurd. Of course Perth is ready for an NRL team. They've been ready since 1994.
Yeah. Produces NRL talent right now.
Yep.
Has a perfect rugby league stadium that he upgraded a little bit, and it'd be a brilliant stadium. And I'm not talking about Optus Stadium that they just played at. They've got a rectangular stadium there. We looked it up before. How much did it hold? 20,000?
Yeah, 20,500. But it's only got two sort of stands and a bit of a hill area at the back end of it. I think it's kind of designed a bit like Shark Park, I guess, is what it looks like.
I would say it's way better than Shark Park. It's an all-seater stadium, right?
Oh yeah, but I was just talking about the way it looks. Like it's got
Yeah.
a bit of a hill back there, and
Yep. And if you add a grandstand to that stadium, you'd get that up to about 30,000. Like it's got one big grandstand on the one side already. The other side, if you add a grandstand to that, you're up towards 30,000, and it's a really, really good stadium to watch footy at. They produce their own players. Their locals turn up to watch rugby league. Brilliant for time zones. Sounds terrible. Let's hope that the NRL never ever does that.
yeah, sounds like it's a lock to me.
Yeah.
So thanks for that, Buzz. But he was talking up AFL in there, so imagine our surprise.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty much it from the Daily Telly for today.
Yep.
Yeah.
What did you think of Justin Pascoe coming back after his
Coming back
6
where?
months sabbatical?
Coming back where?
To the West Tigers.
No.
What?
Oh, I don't want Justin Potato at the Tigers.
He's back, baby.
Oh no.
He might be able to get some of these players that have been missed out on. He might have been able to secure, DWZ.
No.
He's pretty good with contract.
No.
He'd be like, listen, NRL, we signed DWZ, okay? He's on $300,000 a year, but after he retires, we're going to give him $1.5 million. Is that okay? What? Hey, what? No, it's not. I've got to put that in salary cap. What?
Wait.
What would that be?
Why was this news hidden from me? I can't believe this. This is nuts. This is a travesty. I thought the club had moved on. They'd brought in the Barry Hermitage Grange O'Farrell to come in to replace him, which was an upgrade somehow. Why go back to that?
It seems strange to me. And look, I said this with the Sharks, with Flanagan, when he was banned the first time. And look, you've got to re-employ them, I guess. There's probably contractual issues in that regard, and issues in terms of, I don't know. I just feel as though there'd be some lawyer that would say, "Listen, you can't just sack him."
Wasn't Potato though deregistered? Like, did they just think that after 6 months, he's served his time, he's learnt his lesson now?
And it's not just that, but like, are you comfortable with him being the CEO again? And
no,
no, that's the answer.
I wasn't comfortable with him being there before he was an idiot and got caught doing stupid crap.
Yeah.
All he did was constantly whinge about things and go on the radio talking about how hard the Tigers were going on certain things. Just run the club. Stop trying to be a media personality. And then he had that weird drama with Farah's contract, and I don't know what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
And I get the impression that he doesn't know what he was trying to do. And now he's back being the CEO again. I just thought the club had made a good decision. They got a new coach. They'd moved on from that Cleary drama and stopped talking about it. Mm-hmm. And then they're going to have this clown come back again. It's just going to sort of... I just know that some people in the media are going to sort of start talking about him again. And, he left when the whole Penrith thing was going on and Ivan Cleary and blah, 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 blah. And I mean, this is a bloke who didn't even know whether he was sacked or whether he resigned from Penrith. And he's now running an NRL club. Remember he said in the media, they got rid of me, and then they said, hang on, you resigned. So you go to the Tigers, despite the fact you still had time to go on a contract with us. This is the same person who was complaining about contracts not being respected by Ivan Cleary.
Andrew, it's a redemption story.
Bullshit.
It's a redemption story. How dare you?
This is one very stupid potato. Get rid of it.
Just another thing too, and I'm just looking at the headlines. This is from 18 hours ago on the NRL website, and this is your club again. I thought while you were on the ground, I might as well keep kicking. Ma- Maguire hoses down talk of Bankwest Stadium hoodoo building.
Because we've had 2 games and 2 losses there.
Yeah, and not just losses, hey, like, oh, jeez. Like those sorts of soul-destroying ones.
Only the first one was soul-destroying.
I don't know. Don't you think that the one against the Raiders was a soul-destroying loss?
Nah, we've been losing to them for a while.
Okay.
The fact we didn't get dicked by 60 was pretty. That was a positive result.
It's so bad to be in that position as a fucking fan. Shit.
Just look at the recent results though that the Tigers have had with Canberra. It's not been pretty.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why we look at that and say, yeah, you know what? It's not a bad run really.
Yeah.
I'll just bring up see if I can find them. There was some big
bring them up because it's funny because they're doing this whole our jungle thing with the stadium and they're like it's Parramatta Stadium. It's just Parramatta Stadium and everyone knows that and it doesn't matter how that changes. We've talked about that before. But they're doing this our jungle thing. And look, I think it's a good idea for them to be playing games there. But when you start saying this is our jungle, damn it, you got to prove it. You got to have some decent crowds there. Which that crowd against the Raiders was shocking.
I would suggest that they change the hashtag from our jungle when they play at Bankwest to our pot plant. What do you call that bit of grass that grows in between like the nature strip?
Like you know when you walk down the road. Yeah, I guess these days councils call it our tripping hazard.
That's right.
It's like if it's not so much our jungle as there's a white marker around it so that the council workers come around and pull it out and fix up the concrete so no one trips over and sues them.
Our slightly unkempt lawn out the front of the house.
Yeah, exactly.
A bit wordy for a hashtag, but I think it's a bit more accurate. Here you go. Here's the results for Canberra versus Tigers. Okay, since 2016.
Go for it.
Lost 60-6. Lost 52-10. Lost 46-6. Lost 48-12. Tigers then had a win in 2018, 22-20. Then they lost again this year, 28-0.
Wow, so 28-0 was actually a pretty good result.
It's the second best result we've had against them since 2016.
That's crazy.
So we're walking away going, that's not too bad anymore. We've finally got them down to scoring less than 40 points against us.
So just say, right, and it's tonight, Tigers take on Rabbitohs. Rabbitohs still a little bit like underdone in terms of they've got a number of players out. Obviously, no Inglis. That's a thing. They haven't got Sammy Burgess. He's got I think he got his shoulder cleaned up or something like that. So they're not at full strength. I think they're getting Reynolds back tonight, which will be good. I don't know if he's been confirmed yet, but I have a feeling he's going to play tonight. Walker should be in there. So they're not completely weakened, but they're not at their best. If the Tigers tonight get absolutely just dicked. The West Tigers start thinking about maybe there is some sort of hoodoo at this stadium. Like how many smashings at the one stadium do you have to go through before you start thinking, oh my goodness,
I think getting hammered by Parramatta by 50 points there is the start of going, okay, we have no presence at this venue. Then losing 28-0 against Canberra, an out-of-Sydney team, you just go, okay, we not only have no presence here, we also don't know how to play at this place. Let's abandon it now.
Just walk away.
Just walk away.
Forfeit tonight.
Yeah, or just say, any chance you want to play at, say, Ringrose Park instead?
Okay, I've got a question for you. This is a good one, all right? You've got a choice tonight's game, okay? You play it, and you have the ability to win the game, but you could also lose it. And then if you lose it, there might be some for and against you, right? Or between that or you have the chance to forfeit right now, you'll lose the 2 competition points, but there's no effect on your for and against.
Yeah. I can't see how there's any difference between the two. Because have you seen the West Tigers record in Golden Point games?
No, I haven't. Is it bad?
It's the worst in the NRL.
Oh, have you got it there?
That's not lying. That is the worst in the NRL.
Really?
I don't have it on me at the moment, but yeah, I think they'd only had 4 wins out of 18 games or something.
Where? Oh,
let me see if I can drag it up.
The other night, didn't we?
I put up a whole list of, like a ladder of every team's Golden Point record.
Yeah.
And yeah, the West Tigers was clearly worse. This is back when Penrith beat the Tigers in Golden Point early this year.
If people heard the podcasts we did almost every single night with deep dives that we went into some obscure statistics, like they would be fascinated by some of the stuff and then they would fall asleep listening to some of the stuff. Like some of the stuff we will find some shit that will be like, oh my God, that's incredible. Which I know some of our listeners would be like, these two cunts, they need a hobby.
Just this one over here. Tigers have had 5 wins in 19 Golden Point games.
Wow, that's bad.
Yep.
You would think especially with a player like Benji Marshall, who is just a dead set game winner. Man.
Yeah.
I'm looking off into the distance again. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm looking down at my feet again. So I don't see the difference between those 2 points, to be honest.
Yeah. Wow. That's terrible. Okay. Well, this has been a good episode. I've enjoyed it.
I bet you have.
Yeah, sorry. You've hated it. Just one thing, just one last thing. Can you tell us about when Balmain died and I had to... No, sorry. I had to. Tell us about the merger. Oh, shit. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, just quickly, the crazy thing about the merger is everyone was cranky about it for like 4 years. Yeah. And then we won a premiership. And everyone's like, hooray, we won a title, we're fantastic. And then the next year when we didn't even make the final, so... Man, they hate one another once again, and it's been like that ever since. And you get people from both the people on the West Magpies side, not all of them, just a handful of them, are adamant that the Magpies are coming back because Balmain's now practically non-existent / broke. Mm-hmm. The Balmain side have accepted that their club is practically insolvent / broke, so they just go, "Oh, we're supporting the West Tigers now."
Yeah. It's funny too because it changed because when the merger happened, and look, and I can't remember who it was that said it, but it was like they're 2 dying clubs merging, and I can't remember who it was that said that.
Most of the media,
anybody that was alive, I guess, was saying it at the time. Yeah. But there was a feeling that that Balmain was in a much stronger position at that time than the West Tigers thing, and the west side, the Western Suburbs Magpie side. And so early on, it was very much Tigers dominated, and it was like, oh yeah, well, it's really Balmain, and I guess West have got a little bit of, if they've got a little logo on the jersey. Whereas now, down the track, it's like, well, it's kind of almost all Western Suburbs and the Tigers. It is a Tiger logo and stuff. And I mean, Balmain's just about gone. Like the Balmain Tigers are just about gone.
Yeah, it's a funny thing because the small bunch of Magpies fans who hate the West Tigers, they hate the fact it's got Tigers in the name.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much the only semblance left of Balmain's existence.
Yeah.
Sure, it's a major one. I won't discount that, but that's pretty much it. I think Balmain's lower grade sides are all merged with Right Eastwood or something like that. I don't know. I've not followed that for quite a while.
Can you imagine if in 1990, leading into the grand final, or say grand final day, 1989, grand final day, and we all remember the footage that they would always have at Balmain Leagues Club. If you sat down with somebody and said, you know what, this place is going to end up derelict. It's going to have sat there for, over a decade now. I think it's been empty. your club's going to merge with the Western Suburbs Magpies, and the Western Suburbs Magpies are going to basically be dragging your logo around and your colours around. And all of this, the club is basically dead, lower grades, all gone. This league's club.
Part of the league's club being derelict is because of Benny Elias. That would shock a few people. And that awesome young talent, Tim Brash, is going to be playing for South.
Oh, can you imagine?
You'd probably get murdered.
Oh, and by the way, playing for Souths, but Souths are going to die and come back too. And then they're going to die and come back.
And win a title.
They're going to win a title, and they're going to be a big club. And this club right now that we're sitting in with everyone here is not going to exist anymore. They'd probably punch you right in the face.
Yeah, you'd be murdered. There'd be a death in Roselle.
Yeah. How weird is rugby league?
10 years. 10 years.
It was only 10 years and they had to merge because they were basically gone.
Well, the thing was, and I'm pretty sure, we'll be digging into this in another episode, but I'm pretty sure Balmain were told that as at 1999, they were going to be financially viable for a few more years. I think it might have been 3 or 4, but long-term prospects-wise were very poor for the club.
Mm.
So they could have, if they had chosen to, they could have gone it alone for a few more seasons, but it was not going to be viable. The Magpies, though, I think it had been told that, it's 1983 all over again.
Yeah.
Especially given their on-field performances as well. Just that every club that they'd spoken to, like Balmain and Parramatta, in a lot of talks, Parramatta just wanted to take them over and take the logo. That was it. And for the Magpies, it was even worse than that. The Bulldogs just wanted to take them over and completely dissolve the Magpies entirely.
Yeah.
So it's just this weird, awkward truce between the two clubs to let's just go together and we'll give each other 50% each and we'll both be happy.
Mm.
And it's been that way ever since.
Yeah. And that's weird because and I've talked to you about this last night, I think it was, we were talking about it. You look at the history of the West Tigers, and I don't know about you, I still feel it's like a brand new club, right? Like it's still a new thing. Line it up to the history of the Illawarra Steelers. Yeah. And it's so strange that you think of the Steelers as having this long history and stuff, and man, it's like they've been around for about the same amount of time as each other.
West Tigers been around longer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm talking about just the top level, top grade.
Yeah.
It's weird when you think about things like that, because there would be people that would still be like, yeah, one day the Steelers, they'll be back. So strange. Anyway.
They'll be back. They're already there. They just play a few games at Cogra every year.
Yeah.
That's going to get the Dragons fans in.
Yeah. Well, every so often we see their socks.
Yes. Didn't the Illawarra Hawks wear an Illawarra Steelers themed jumper earlier in the season?
Oh, did they? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was a rather unexpected trip down memory lane.
Yeah. We should edit that last part and just call it like the West Tigers merger. We should do a big episode about the West Tigers merger. You know who, and this is a shout out to anybody that's listening. I would love to have Neil Whittaker come on here and just talk about his time going from working at Balmain and then into being the head of the ARL and then working through the ARL Super League merger. So if anybody knows Neil Whittaker and can ask him if he'd like to come on, please do, and get in touch with us. podcast@leaguefreak.com. And oh man, can you imagine? We'll give him hours to talk, and like I'll go to wherever he is as long as he's in Sydney or if he's in Hawaii. And yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Absolutely, he'd be a stunning get. speaking of, we do have quite a few guests lined up over the next few weeks, so yeah, keep tuned for that.
Yeah, we've got James Smith coming on Tuesday. We've locked that one in, so that's going to be cool.
Let us know. This is what was prominent about the Dead in Goal podcast that James hosted. Is they used to constantly talk about new ideas for rugby league.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was good at spitballing ideas. So we might start up a bit of a thing on Twitter there and ask people what's an idea that you think James Smith and the Ferg on the Freak podcast could discuss, flesh out to try and solve some sort of issue in the game, try and make the game better, maybe try and fix some issues in the game.
Yeah, and also you can also send this stuff to podcast@leaguefreak.com as an email address. The other thing you can do too is tell us anything about retro rugby league that you miss or that you love or that you wish would come back. We'll talk about that. We're going to have more of a general just sit down and have a chin wag, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's going to be a good episode. It'll be longer than the last one we did. So yeah, it's going to be just a good conversation and just going to be the three of us having a good chin wag about rugby league. It'll be great. I'm really looking forward to it.
And James is a comedic, intellectual, genius brain, and I'm fairly certain he's listening, so I'm hoping I've put some pressure on him. Mate, you've got to bring the goods because, yeah, we've all heard my quality.
No, well, there's no pressure on James at all. We've got to get that clear.
Well, that's because he's a
But if he doesn't double our normal
platform.
listeners, he's never coming back.
There we go.
I'm just saying. Just no pressure, though. It's just all, you know. I'm just saying that he needs to drive this podcast forward on all platforms or life ban.
Life ban. All right. Any last minute shout outs?
Shout outs. Wow. To the starting block. Okay. Listen to them last night. Very funny show. Very, very funny show last night, as they all are. And saying a funny starting block show, it's like saying, well, yeah, they recorded. Watched it live. Jumped in their chat and had a bit of fun in there. That was all good. Fantastic. Always follow them. If you want to follow them on Twitter, it's The Starting Block. You drop the K at the end. We love them. We absolutely love the Starting Block.
And Boogie Bumper as well.
Yeah, Boogie Bumper. I think it's just like Boogie Bumper. I don't think it's spelt with any extra O's or something, although I always get extra O's from it.
As you do. Got a few regulars, so Nadine, Arabella, Carsten.
Richard Cranium.
Richard Cranium, I was about to pop him in there.
Bartram 13.
There you go. You guys are all awesome.
Yeah, love every single one of yous. Let me have a look here if there's anyone else. Matt Attard, one of our biggest supporters of the show. We'll have him on very soon once more. I'm just going through James R. James R. retweets our tweets all the time.
Is he a rugby league fan?
He is now. He most certainly is now.
Or have we just confused the matter more for him?
There's always that possibility. So, yeah, I think that that'll probably do for shout-outs. So I can't think of anybody that we've missed terribly in there. I know that we will have Dizzy Dave, who is a follower of ours. He gets very angry about some things, Dizzy Dave, but it's always great to see. I want to
close out with a serious question that's not rugby league related for you. Okay, you got to pick one. Okay. Today there's been a bit of a feud between Grant Denyer and Tom Gleeson.
I already hate this question.
Grant Denyer said, if Tom Gleeson wins the gold Logie, it would spell the end of the Logies forever. And I think the Logies were ruined the year that a Carpenter won it.
Yeah, he did. Although I feel like if you go back a little further, I felt like when it was just every year it was Georgie Parker, and then it was that the woman that was on that show, the blonde woman, and I can't remember her name. Oh, what was her name? She was on that, like, and I know I'm trying to narrow it down. But
Adriana Xenides?
No, she was great. She was on that, and I'm going to listen to me narrow this down. She was on that Australian cop show.
This is going good.
Blue Heelers.
Sophie Lee?
She was wonderful, Sophie Lee. She should come back, eh? I wonder what Sophie Lee is up to.
Yeah, no idea. Yeah, I know you're talking about.
Yeah. What's her name? Anyway, she's really memorable. And she still does stuff, but she won it like 15 years in a row or something. When would you say the glory days of the Gold Logie was?
Oh.
Got to be Bert Newton and all that, eh?
Yeah, probably in 1978.
Yeah.
Norman Gunston.
Yeah, that sort of era.
Yeah, before I was born, before I saw any of it.
Yeah. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, those were the days. Never saw them, but those were the days.
That's right.
One of those ones.
Alrighty, we'll wrap this up. People, hop onto YouTube and subscribe to us. Go and just click the thumbs up button on all the videos, just for shits and giggles, for more than anything.
Don't have to watch it even. Just thumbs up it and
move on.
Yeah.
Follow us on Twitter, Fergo Freak Pod. You follow this man, League Freak, at League Freak. I'm on there, at Andrew RLP. With that long, awkward silence and noise, we might sign off.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm going to go and get something to eat. I hope my stomach hasn't been grumbling too loud.
Only a little bit, but excellent. The snoring of your dog drowned it out a little.
Ah, fantastic.
Alrighty, people. Catch us all later.